All right, what episode are we on?
8.
8 of the Every Second Accounts podcast.
That's why I'm here. That's episode numbers.
That is Sam's contribution to the podcast. It's been real, Sam. All right. So, today's guest, none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Lister.
Hello.
For those of you that don't know, Sam Lister is the CEO, founder, owner, whatever title you want to throw onto the BLNK SLATE media. He is also the epitome of a LinkedIn guru. Trying to throw some shit at you. I don't know. Why don't you give a better elevator pitch of yourself before I talk you up for the next 10 minutes?
If you can.
If you can.
We'll never use LinkedIn guru in the same sentence as myself.
That's how I view you, man. LinkedIn influencer.
Ooh, that was
I
tough.
like living life. I run a few companies and create a ton of content on the internet, but ultimately I just live. I live, and that's it.
Wow. All right, so outside of this being the worst intro we've had yet, I want to dive in your story, which kind of coincides with our story a little bit. So, I mean, I'll literally start it off the first time that we met. I think we've butchered it every time that we've told this story, but it had to be 3 years ago. We always throw a crazy dart throw on it. 2.5, 3.5.
Yep. We'll say three years ago. Give or
Yeah.
take.
I was just starting Every Second Accounts. I was just starting to do content for the first time of, the 12 times that I started up doing content. And you had reached out because you're like, hey, I kind of see what you're doing. I don't know if it was Instagram or LinkedIn or what, but you had to be, and I'm not trying to pull a Tyler when we had him on and just rag on your age, but you literally had to be 16, 17, maybe?
We were like 17 at the time.
Yeah, and
Maybe just turning 18, but yeah, between like 17 and 18.
I don't know what prompted you to reach out, but literally I was like, and kind of in that phase where I was listening to Gary Vee, and he's like, take meetings with people, just don't say no if you have the time, this and that. And out of every one of those conversations and yeses that I had, you're the only person that, to this day, I still, talk to from that. But literally, I think I said this in a video, I don't know if we've posted it yet or not, but I basically said that like 5,000, sit downs with random people wouldn't even, touch not making the fact that you and I met through that worth it. So you're the epitome for me of why you take every meeting that you can, because you never know what's going to come from it. And obviously not just our business relationship, but friendship as well. So I kind of want to talk to you, through that same time. That was what was going through my mind when you reached out. So what kind of prompted you to reach out at that point in your career? What was kind of going through your head? What were you really trying to go after?
No, and I can echo the pretty much same exact thing. Again, I've taken thousands of meetings in this meeting. I've stayed up to date and caught up with a few other people out there, but nothing to this level of just personal relationship outside of business. Again, I look at life very fluidly, as far as I don't really categorize life as in, hey, this is life over here, this is business over here. It's life for me. So again, any relationships are personal in this sense. And again, I'm super grateful that we built this relationship. But obviously, like we've had background. We've gone to the same high school between myself, Sam, and Sutton. We're a few years apart, and obviously I have an older brother. So within those 4 people, we've covered a lot of the areas in between as far as the
Absolutely.
age gaps. So I think that's obviously initially I knew of you guys, Sutton. I knew what you were kind of doing, but at that stage, again, similar to you, I was just getting into like content, just getting into like Gary Vee, and he was like, take any meeting you can. And I remember so vividly, like, packing my schedule up with as many coffee meetings as possible, just because I knew like I didn't have a ton of value to provide to people, but I knew I'm really good at talking to people and I could connect with people. So that's exactly what I did. I would just take any meetings I could, simply try to learn what other people were doing, see anywhere I could be of value to people if I connect them with anyone else. And I didn't really have too many like crazy intentions behind every single meeting, besides like, hey, I just want to be here. I want to get comfortable in a business-ish setting and kind of just talking about this atmosphere and ecosystem. So that's really what it was. And I had no idea what would come from it. But again, you never know where those little opportunities are, relationships you can build until you just say yes and show up.
Absolutely. I love that. So kind of building on that then, obviously you brought the idea of what is now Blank Slate. I shouldn't say what is now Blank Slate Media, but the fact that you wanted to start a company in the content space is the most loose, I guess, example. I know you will talk through all the pivots of Blank Slate itself, but I know you had vaguely an idea of what you were going into because obviously you brought up MPE vlogs and we can talk about, kind of that. So you had an idea of doing video content. Where did that all originate, I suppose? Because I know you have a crazy background of different, business ventures that ran through your head as far as, high school and going into college goes.
When it comes to video, I've definitely taken an unorthodox approach to it. I've never taken a film class or photo class or video class or anything. I didn't go to film school, but really my senior year of high school, a few of my buddies started to just vlog. And again, I knew like Casey Neistat and top like YouTube creators. I never really wanted to be an influencer or be a creator in a sense because I was just super uncomfortable in front of the camera and I had no idea how to work an actual camera. I've never touched a camera, but I just started just filming myself and documenting my story. And again, I dove into Gary Vee a little bit more, and he definitely preaches like, document your life, document your story, just make videos and just put yourself out there. So that's exactly what I did. And I kind of just took one opportunity that led to another, that led to another. And when it came to the point where I could start a video company, I was just still making videos with my iPhone, and people started reaching out to me specifically on LinkedIn, asking if I could make videos for them and I could get paid for it. And then that kind of flipped a switch of like, oh, wow, I could probably get paid to do videos and make more than I was making at the time, which was literally nothing because I quit my job and I needed income. I needed to put food on my plate in a sense. So it was just super like organically, but it happened super quick. And I was prepared to capitalize on any opportunity. And that's what it really comes down to. Like, I wasn't super romantic about video, but throughout that process and throughout me just simply putting myself out there and trying something completely new to me, I fell in love with that process of learning something from scratch. And again, getting clients having never ever touched an actual camera before outside of like my iPhone. So it is just a huge challenge for me. But again, I was just obsessed over that growth and just learning like how to become the best videographer at the time. And obviously we can talk about the iterations, what I've gone through and company has gone through since that, again, late 2018 to where we're at now, mid 2021, coming up on that 3-year mark. So it's been a wild ride, but that's really how I got into the video space initially.
Absolutely. That is, yeah, I mean, you have a fascinating story in that. And every time that you bring up, the fact of, I have no schooling. I have absolutely I have, very much none more than a modest experience holding a camera like all of us do with phones, and the fact that you were able to turn that into what it is today, but even just to get started. So I want to talk about those first few clients. I think for, either people that are watching or we go in a lot about, the stories and how to kind of get going. And I think that's something for you and I that is, our stories are kind of exact opposites in that regard. So I'd love to ask specifically about, that first client or those first few clients. Were you even thinking about it? Or was it literally like they just reached out and said, hey, you're doing video, do it for me?
Literally reached out. So for context of the time, before like entrepreneurship, I was a pizza cook. I managed baseball fields and like raked snow park jumps and was like a snow park manager. All like $10 an hour was my max. I got that like when I was like 17, 18. So I was pretty much rolling in dough. I was super fucking rich at the time, making $10 an hour. Yeah, I was pretty much on top of the world. But that was like my cap on that. And like, I loved my job though. And that's why I didn't ever really look at anything else, because that's been a common theme throughout my life of like, yes, I know money is important, income is important, but my happiness is so much more important than anything else. And I was doing stuff that I genuinely loved to do. I loved my jobs and stuff, but I knew I got to a point where it's like, all right, I can probably be making more than $10 an hour and making a bigger impact on the world. There's never a month that I was making more than $1,000, $2,000 max at the time. So when it came to these opportunities getting into video, again, I tried to start a few different things before that, in crypto and investments and real estate.
You've been posting some of that stuff.
I'm gonna start posting that more and more. But yeah, just like going hard on Snapchat and hey, here's different altcoins I was investing in and a bunch of different stuff from the very, very ground up. But I was essentially just like building my network at the time. Again, this was like 2017, 18, and a connection of mine reached out to me and said like, "Yo, I love the content you're putting out. I know you're pretty new to this, but how like do you want to make videos for me? I'll pay you $5,000 for the next 4 months." And you do videos for me and you learn and I'll help you learn and you help me grow and we can take from there. And it was roughly $1,200 a month, which was pretty much the most I've ever made. And for me to make videos, making $1,200 a month and like having that be one client, that just opened up the world of opportunities of like, I'm an 18-year-old kid. I've never touched a camera before. I have an iPhone that I got 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I have a few videos up on LinkedIn. So if this is the barrier of entry, and if I can find these opportunities right now, what can I do in 3 years, 6 years, 10 years down the road when it comes to this content creation ecosystem? So that's when I really went all in, and that was again, fall of 2018. So that was my very first client, completely inbound. And then my second client, which is funny. So that first client, I invested that first $1,200 check into an actual camera. So that was the first time I actually like touched and held and like recorded with an actual camera. So I was just at one of his events, just kind of goofing around, just testing out the camera, just using all auto settings. And then while I was walking out of that event, I had the camera in my hand and a dude came up to me in the elevator and said like, "Yo, do you do videos?" And I just confidently said like, "Yeah, like it's my job. I'm a full-time videographer." He's like, "Cool, I have an event like tomorrow. It's like a nightclub event for like teenagers and stuff. Our videographer dropped. Can you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can totally do it." And for nerdy camera background stuff, shooting on auto settings is very different than manual settings to control the shutter speed, and ISO, and white balance, and a bunch of nerdy camera stuff.
A nightclub sounds like a nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
You cannot shoot any auto settings in a nightclub.
Yeah, that's exactly like I know nothing about cameras, but
I know that.
Yeah.
So I had to pretty much learn everything, all manual camera settings overnight to shoot the next day. And I did it. I pulled it off. I figured out what the main, like what ISO means and white balance means and what I can still shoot on auto versus manual. And Tyler Reitzman helped me out there, and he lent me a lens at the time to help shoot in low light club setting. So everything really comes full circle. But yeah, that was my second client ever, and first client with my actual camera, and just met him in the elevator and showed up and said yes, and figured everything out later. I don't think I shut my camera off the whole like 2-hour event. So I had so much footage and I had no idea how to edit it, but I edited it and he was a client for a while and I did a ton of events for him. But yeah, that was like my second ever. And then that just snowball effect continued of people reaching out. I reach out to people, and it really just started my whole kind of video career from that point forward.
That is wild. And for me, hearing that, one, we talked a lot about this specific point when, of all people, Tyler was on, but basically seizing opportunities and saying yes to everything and figuring it the fuck out later. I absolutely love that. It's still such a crazy story to me about how, like, sitting here today, seeing like where video has, grown to be this foundational, kind of thing, and it wasn't even what you initially had set out to do. It was literally like, well, I'm just going to start documenting my journey, and then seeing where it grew is just phenomenal. And hearing how you navigated it is always a story I could listen to over and over again. It's awesome. So you start getting these clients, and obviously it kind of starts growing. Where in your mind are you in terms of where do you want to grow this? Where were you initially with Blank Slate? Because obviously this is where kind of the iteration story can start. Like, hey, I'm doing content for people. I'm going to shoot content. Like, was that the holy crap, I'm just going to go at it? Did you start having thoughts early on of this is where I want to take it? Or was it just, hey, I'm just going to grab whatever's available?
Yeah, so initially it was like, how do I become the best videographer possible? Solo videographer, it was just myself. I mean, I was just investing into cameras. So I was big on like the cinematography side of things, and just again learning video, making cool looking videos, and kind of going into different events and stuff. So I didn't really have too much of a big long-term vision, but I knew it was important to build that foundation of creating videos, and I need to be the best I can at that skill, and then I'll figure everything out later. I don't know what the iterations will be, but I knew I could make a living going out and filming $300, $400, $500, $600 videos at a time, and I could stockpile some cash on the side. Not even on the side, but I could stockpile cash, period, to be able to invest in other things. But everything's centered around creation. So again, at the very start, I'm a solo videographer. I have no idea how to like build a company and launch a company. That's not really what I was thinking about. And it was just like capitalizing on personal opportunities at the start.
I love that. So before we dive further into the iterations of Blank Slate as a whole, once again, for those like early entrepreneurs, people that are watching this in that headspace, what was landing that first client like for you? You kind of touched on it, but really I just want you to hone in on that. Like, where was your headspace at? Because I know for me, I've obviously been, my career was built foundationally in the 9-to-5 world. I never even had really aspirations of doing entrepreneurship until probably my sophomore, junior year of college. And it wasn't even really from an entrepreneurship standpoint. And this is where we got a little bit of a parallel, was I just try to make some extra money, and just put some stuff out there and see what happens. And for me, landing that first client, I was like, holy shit. Like, and mine was completely remote. It was somebody I never met. Somebody I was like, somebody's going to pay me. They've never met me. Like, they're going to hire my company. So it wasn't even like my resume, it was just like every second accounts. I was like, this is freaking nuts. Like, I literally it impacted me more to get that first. I think the first project was like a week project. It was like $300 or something. At the time, I was probably making 70, 80K a year. I literally, and they sent me a check, and I literally was like shaking for a $300 check. Because I was like, holy shit, it was so different for me. So, not to keep going on that story, my story, but what was that for you? Because that unlocked a whole new realization for me in that one $300 check.
I've never even said this, so I'll probably just stop and just fucking laugh at myself and just burst out laughing. But I'll tell two stories here. First story is when I was building my drop shipping store when I was 17. I was building a drop shipping store, sourcing products from Alibaba. Everything was centered around outdoors and stuff. And I was really trying to learn Facebook ads and different promotions and different discounts and how do you sell something online. And I was running some sale, hey, if you buy this one thing, you get something for free.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. Or hey, we're doing this discount. I'll send you a free bracelet or something. You just cover shipping, those promotions and stuff. So I set one of those up it was like a water bottle or something, like a $3, $5, $6 water bottle. Yeah. Hey, free water bottle. You just pay for shipping. You just tack on $1 or $2 on the shipping side of things. So just to get things rolling. I saw my first quote unquote sale come through, and they tried to buy 10 to 15 water bottles for free, but only pay for one thing of shipping. And my dumbass didn't set anything up to say, yep, you can't do that. So it was literally 15 water bottles. I lost what was it? $30, $20, whatever it was. And that was my first ever e-commerce sale client ever. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a fucking dumbass.
Hey, I mean, realistically though, you were onto something, because is that not 90% of startups nowadays? Hey, at the end of the day, I don't care if you lost money, you sold 15. All on top line, right?
Pretty much. So it was, that's funny. I've never told that story before.
I've never heard it. That is hilarious.
I stopped that store pretty quick. I'm like, there's so many things here that before I mess up too bad, I'm gonna pivot this to a different direction. So that was my end of e-commerce. It was a few months of the process, but Yeah, that was that. But the first, my first like videography sale, again, that initial like 1250, $5,000 contract over 4 months. It was absolutely life changing. Like I remember it so vividly. It was the coffee shop a little bit down the road from where I'm at right now. And it was insane because I realized like, damn, this is actually happening. You can actually make money doing creative things. And again, we've been told growing up that you can't make money in the arts, you can't make money doing photos or videos or painting or
For
anything
hobby, right?
artistic. And the reality is there's so many more creators making 10 times as much as top end neurosurgeons in the world. If you take the top 1% of content creators and influencers versus any other industry on the planet, and that top 1%, content creators and influencers are going to trump everything else. Maybe besides like high end venture capitalist investors and
Yeah.
other business entrepreneurs that have sold for $1 billion companies. If you take any other industry and compare it to top 1% or top 0.05%, content creators and influencers are going to win every single day. We see people making tens of millions of dollars per year in this industry, and that was the first time that I had the small taste of, oh damn, this is legit. Like, it's so easy to make fun of YouTubers and TikTokers and Instagram models and people selling their soul for brand deals. When, yeah, are there some shady deals here and there? Sure, that's business. Like, there's some corruption there, and that's what it's gonna be. But at the end of the day, like, people are monetizing their dreams. They're living their dreams by talking about things they like and consuming and creating content around things they're passionate about. So that was really my first like spark of, okay, I don't know where this video thing is going to take me, but I know it's super, super important. So I'm going to invest every single dollar, every single penny, every single hour I can into this thing to make something work. And again, I can't plan too far ahead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future because I have no idea what's going to happen next week. So again, that's the mindset I've really tried to adopt as best as possible of, I just need to be open. Next week, there's going to be some crazy opportunities that I don't even know of, that I can't even plan right now. Speaking of this very moment. So again, just going after it with an open mind, but just being prepared to capitalize on opportunities when they come.
And that is a perfect segue then into, and we could obviously talk, I think, we take up the whole hour just talking about, Blank Slate's history in depth, but kind of walk us through then, like what were the iterations of Blank Slate? Because I think what you just said is exactly why Blank Slate has not only succeeded, but continued to stay ahead of the curve of, and as you tell the story, that'll make more sense with the pandemic. And because I think that ability to adapt has literally foundationally structured everything that you've accomplished today. So kind of walk through the iterations of, Blank Slate from MKE vlogs through where we're at today.
Yeah, so three years ago, again, summer to fall of 2018 is when I got into this video space. I wanted to start this company called MKE Vlogs, where I would go into different companies and essentially just vlog and just help them promote their business and kind of showcase behind the scenes of everything. And that was my first, like, it wasn't a lead gen source, but I essentially wanted to talk to other agency owners and other business owners, but I wasn't super valuable to them. So I would just offer them like, hey, I'll come to your place and shoot a free video for you guys. You guys can use it. I'll use it. You guys can get free promotion. So that's how I got my foot in the door to a lot of just small businesses, just to expand my network. And then from there, the end of 2018, when I started Blank Slate Media, I just, again, from our maybe first or second meeting, Sutton, when we were talking about, hey, this kind of direction we want to go, I said, yeah, I want to start this company, MKE Vlogs. You told me it was a terrible name for it because it just pigeonholes myself of, hey, you can't really expand this outside of Milwaukee or expand this outside of vlogs. So you should probably change your name pretty quick. So literally that day I came up with Blank Slate Media, and that was in October 2nd of 2018, the day before I turned 19 years old. So pretty much started the company on my 19th birthday. And then from there, all of 2019, I would spend the year traveling the country, traveling the state, going around and building out a video production company. Hired a few people, hired my buddy Ty, that was on the podcast recently. your guys' podcast recently, I should say. And then, yeah, we spent all of 2019 traveling to Miami and Washington, D.C. and all around Wisconsin, doing events and interviews, doing a video production company though. So coming in with 2, 3, 4 camera sets and big interview setups and just big scale interviews. And then that led us to early 2020 where I really found myself struggling of like, what direction do I want to take it? I wanted to travel way more. I didn't really want to run a video production agency anymore. So I was really struggling as far as like what direction to take it. And then COVID hit, which was like another double whammy of like, all right, every single in-person video shoot is canceled for the rest of the year. And that pretty much got shut down immediately. So I knew we had to pivot really quick. And if I wanted to stay in business, I would need to kind of roll with the punches and launch something new. So that's when I launched like the blank slate editing side of things, where I would really now spend the next 12 to 14 months to get us to where we are now of building an editing company from scratch. So we have a whole team in the Philippines right now. And we work with a ton of clients in that space. So really editing their videos for social. And again, the first 6, 7, 8 months, Ty and I would hand edit so many things because we were trying to like find different editing team that works and different editing companies that we can use for our editing team, so we don't need to hire internally. So I know I personally would spend hours a day communicating back and forth with the editors, fixing revisions. But in fall of 2020, we partnered up with my now my kind of like business partner, Mike, who would take over our editing side of things. And now we have a pretty smooth system. We've really scaled that division pretty well in a short matter of time, especially during the middle of a pandemic. So now we're getting to a point where I can pretty much fire myself from the business. Everything runs without me. If I don't touch it for a week or a month, it still runs, it still grows. So that's what I've really spent the last 14 months or so since March of 2020 building, and essentially just getting it to a point where I can fire myself. So now here we are in June of 2021 of the recording of this. And we're in a really interesting spot where we're just scaling the editing side of things. I want that to be my first exit within probably 12 to 16 months from now. So that's really the plan. And then we'll launch more things in kind of the media division after that. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride, a lot of iterations, but right now we're at the best point we've ever been, despite coming off of a global pandemic. So now as the world starts opening up, it's fun seeing all the new opportunities and kind of the fruits of your labor sprout or grow or whatever the fuck the saying is. But there's fruits that we can eat from our labor. So that's the point of it, which is cool, because over the past 3 years, it's cool. Like applying everything you've actually learned into one thing and having it grow during the hardest time in the world to grow anything, while everyone's in quarantine, while the world is in a pandemic, when the economy is failing. That's obviously the hardest time to grow, but that's what makes you grow the most. So I'm super grateful for how these past 14 months have turned out. But again, not going to school for this, not going to college, I never really had any formal education of how do I build a company? How do I get into video? So it's just like picking up pieces as I go along, storing it in my cluttered brain, and then being able to reference those, just like you are on a test. But I'm not taking an ACT. The test is, hey, how do I start this business? How can I scale this business? How can I get more clients? And that list just continues on. So it's cool kind of pulling knowledge I've learned and gathered the past 3-4 years to actually apply it in a physical sense and see that come to fruition from scratch.
Obviously, I can also speak to the product itself. Like anyone who watches my videos, like obviously Blank Slate edits the podcast. And would you say 90%?
Probably, yeah.
90% of Inside of the Accountant's Mind. So obviously, I've used Blank Slate pretty much since day one. Back when you and Ty had to sit for 3 hours for me to get a 30-second clip out. And I can't imagine the editing and all of that to fast forward to today, where you know, you have the most seamless of portals that I've, you know, used in any sort of content or actually just any sort of supplier or vendor space. So obviously applause to that. I've seen every iteration of Blank Slate, so I can attest to how much growth has transpired throughout this last, you know, 14-month window as you talk about. But to hit on, you know, so now you've been able to fire yourself, which our parallels are always super crazy. Like obviously I'm ancient compared to you in terms of age, but
pretty much finished.
yeah, exactly. But like our parallels in the entrepreneurship, you know, world have always been super interesting. You know, like I feel like our journey started at a very similar time, and like our trials and tribulations and our stories have always kind of closely matched with one another's. So obviously I had a similar story kind of throughout the pandemic and get to that same point. And I'm now working towards that same being able to fire yourself from, you know, from the day-to-day ops position. So with that though, I obviously know that you're not, you know, similar to where my mindset is at. That's not the end of, you know, you're not looking to go sit on a beach in Costa Rica somewhere and coast for the next next 80 to 90 years. So what would you say is next for Sam Lister and Blank Slate? And I know the answers. I don't know what you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. I know a lot of it's just been, you know, more, but whatever you kind of care to share.
I'm in a really interesting spot right now. So essentially I have the editing division of Blank Slate. That's pretty automated. I'm working with my buddy Jake at Trendsetters as well, on their content side of things, kind of taking over, again, a lot of the content and social side of their company. So next 12, 24, 36, 48 months, definitely plan on selling the editing side of things and having my first 7-figure exit on that. And then while in this time I'm working on just building up the Blank Slate media company side of things and having our own media brand. Think of it maybe as a loose Barstool approach, not centered around sports or anything Barstool is related to, but the same infrastructure of having this company and a bunch of media companies under it, scaling the media companies. And then I'm hoping that'll be my first 8-figure exit within the next few years. So I just say that to put it on record so I can reference this video back and say, damn, that 21-year-old kid was whack, but he fucking did it. He pulled it off. So that's literally why I say this loosely. But yeah, that's kind of a rough plan. And then just keep investing into the kind of content creator ecosystem, helping other people kind of live out their own dreams. And again, we'll see what comes from that. But that's kind of the loose infrastructure of my life, because, you know, life doesn't change at all. And when you make plans, they never change, because life is perfect, you know.
I love that. And like literally like living by what you started with and how you're like, I know that talking with you about planning is the exact opposite. That's why we've always worked super well together, because I'm the anal, like, you know, very, very articulated and structured one. But I always like picking your brain on it too, because hearing like, you know, the type of visionary you know, thoughts and projections that you have is always a treat. And I think that whatever goals that you set, I mean, as even with Blank Slate, like I look forward to you continuing to, you know, far exceed whatever sort of goals and aspirations you set, because I know your work ethic multiplies it times 100. So
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Also want to hit on, like, obviously it's not finalized today, but
Bucks and six.
Yeah,
it
Bucks
happened.
and six.
It happened. I know that was the question.
Because unlike you, when the Bucks win the finals this year, and I saw my Giannis is, I will go sit on a beach in Costa Rica for the next 80 years and just call it a day. Where I was actually going with that is your first potential investor in Blank Slate, which is just taking a step back, you know, to where we started this story, you know, 17, 18 years old, even 12 months ago or 6 months ago, but kind of walk me through that headspace, because I know you and I aren't people that went the VC route. We've never talked about investors or companies of our own. And actually hearing you share that with me, whether it was a week ago that kind of started to come to fruition or, you know, kind of presented itself, it put a weird, like, perspective, or just like this odd moment. I had this odd moment of, holy shit, like, and not that this is my opportunity today, but I've never even entertained it to even think about it before. Like, we've built something that other people might actually be interested in. Like going back to where you started your story, you're a 17, 18-year-old kid that is getting clients without even owning a camera, no experience in the video space other than, just recording yourself, to build something that other people go, yo, I'm trying to hop on this ship. Like, walk me through with that mindset. Like, because for me, I just went, holy shit, knowing that like I could go the same route. It's like, how in the world have I built something? Because I still feel like an absolute novice in that, I don't think we ever give ourselves enough credit because we're continuing to look forward into, what we want to build next and where we want to take things, that you never stop and smell the roses of holy shit, we've actually done something on some level. So kind of walk me through like when that first reach out happened, or when that moment, kind of started to present itself, what was going through your head?
Yeah, it's been fucking surreal. Again, it's happened very quickly. Again, I've only been kind of entertaining that concept for the last 2 weeks now. And going back to when I was first starting this, I've poured every single ounce of time and energy and last penny I've ever had into this company, taking out all other investments of stock market and just putting it into this and just betting everything I have into this creation of mine. It's so insane to now be at a point where someone else is willing to put up their own money to be along and help me advance this journey, and my team to advance this journey, and all of us to advance this specific business and have it make sense. And outside of just it's different if your family gives you money or close friends gives you money, and like it's typical. That's how a lot of people start businesses. But to have not a complete stranger, but we've only talked one time ever before this, to be able to say like, hey, like I want to write you a check, like let's make it happen, to see how we can just support each other. It's just an absolute surreal moment. And is he writing a check for $100 million to invest in this? No, but within 12, 36, 48 months, that check can turn into a $10 million exit, a $15 million exit. And I haven't even thought about numbers that big right now. And I'm consciously saying that because I know that's where a lot of like limitations come into play. And again, I like to think of myself as a big visionary, and like, I do want to go out and change the world. But at the same time, it's like when you invest your last fucking penny into something, your last penny is a far ways away from $10 million sitting in your bank. So yeah. I guess just facilitating like that growth, it's happened fairly quickly, but it's just a surreal moment to again build something that is actually valuable to outside people. And again, we've had hundreds of clients over the past 3 years, and that in itself is surreal. Of hey, that's someone's hard-earned money that they're investing into you, in your business and of your services, and that you're valuable to them. So that's ridiculous. But then when it comes to the investment side of things, when hey, like I'm not in this for a quick flip, quick cash of this month, or hey, I need your services. It's more of a like, hey, I believe in you and the company and what you're building, and I think it's really valuable to people, and it makes sense from a pure investments financial decision, even less on the emotional relationship side of things. So it's a surreal moment. I haven't been able to sit down and really dive into how I'm feeling about that, and like how surreal this actually is. So again, you're kind of seeing that unfold in real time. But yeah, it's I'm super grateful for the opportunity, and I'm excited to kind of take this next leap, because again, I've never thought about raising investments, raising capital. I've never thought this would be something that people would be interested in investing their own money into. Again, we're super comfortable putting in hundreds, thousands of dollars into the Apples and Amazons and Alphabets of the world, but when it comes to your own thing, we're hesitant to invest in our own thing, our own dreams, and we tend to not see the value that we bring to other people. But sometimes the very small external validations that we're talking about here can solidify a lot of self-doubts. And again, it's a dangerous place to play as far as relying on those external validations, and we won't open up that can of worms. But at the end of the day, like it's surreal. I'm super grateful, and I'm excited to see kind of where these next 12 to 36 months will lead.
And that's why I love asking these questions, because obviously I don't want you to share things, or I don't want to bring up, it's interesting when you have these conversations with friends. Right now, we've been doing the friends and family round to shooting this podcast. I know a lot of behind the scenes, but you walk the fine line of what do you share, what do you talk about, in a public setting to a friend setting. But the reason I wanted to dive into a few of those specific points of the future and the investment is because it's a moment in time piece. Like, you're not gonna be able to go back and answer that question in 6 months when you could be on your second investment or so I really wanted to, if for nothing else, to document that for at least something to look back on, because I know for me, that was like a surreal thing, even hearing you bring up, whether it was, 6-7 days ago, I was like, holy shit, like, we were sitting in a coffee shop, just talking about rent, and now there's literal, fruits of the labor being built where other people are taking notice and wanting to be a part of it. It's crazy to me. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective and some of the headspace that you've been having with that. So I know that we could really talk for hours, and I'm sure we have hours worth of podcast shot in the past, and I'm sure we'll do ones moving forward. I want to go something a little bit different here, specifically because he, I think, has under 50 words in every single podcast we've shot. So I would love for, because I just talk and talk and talk. I would love, and we did this with Tyler as well a little bit, but I would love, obviously Sam is, taken over as my video content, just social media. I don't even know what word to throw on it. Cameraman Sam is what I call him, but basically just handles everything for me, content wise. What are, and I'll open the floor to him for questions, after or whatever, if he has any specifics, but just knowing that, and he's starting at that same point where you had said, I don't know the difference between auto and, starting to get to different settings, and I know shit about cameras, so I'll stop at that. But what are some pieces, of advice, or where would you kind of start knowing where he's at today?
Create what you want, create what you feel. For even anyone wanting to get into the content creation, even ecosystem, I'll kind of take it a little high level and then go a little more granular. But anyone wanting to get into this ecosystem, whether you want to get into photo or video or an artist, putting in the actual reps, as unsexy and as cliche as it sounds, it's the way to do it. Again, if I stopped at my first video or 10th video or 100th video or probably 1000th video, it would look completely different than where I'm at right now. So it just proves reps are everything, with anything in life, but also finding what you actually enjoy. I thoroughly enjoy making videos and telling stories and doing this side of my life and my business. So that's why I can sustain it. But do shit for yourself. So many people will start a YouTube channel or podcast or something just to fuel their ego and just because everyone else is doing it, but have a deeper reason of why do you want to create this product or this service or this video or this podcast or whatever it is. Find that deeper why, and then everything else really falls into place if you just put the reps in and just stay intentional about why you're doing everything you're doing.
Do you have anything you wanted to ask?
I mean, more so, I guess from a standpoint as getting into something, it goes more so than just my level of where I'm at. I mean, most of the stuff I do with him is just social media, managing more so, opposed to actually being behind the camera and shooting. But I mean, what you said, it goes for anything, not even just content creation. It's just for anyone wanting to actually dive into something that they would possibly want to do. I mean, it works for anything. Yeah. Just get to work, start doing stuff.
And test. You'll never know what works or what doesn't, or what you like versus what you don't, if you don't test shit out first. So it's yo, Sam, you want to get into social media management and you're doing it with Sutton. Cool. You will never know if you want to do that until you actually do it. And then, all right, maybe you really love it. Then, okay, cool. Ask a few more people if they want support or help doing it. And that's kind of the ecosystem and where you can just start building momentum around that space. So that's what I would suggest. If let's say you want to get into social media management, you want to get into photo, find someone you can trust, offer your services for free, do it, see if you like it, if it's sustainable, if you're actually good at it, because that people love to just leave out the skill side of things, of building something, of building a business. Like, you need to be skillful to actually make it work. Just blind work ethic will not get you very far if you're not very good at what you are working towards. Obviously, like, you need to put in the reps to practice, but at the certain point, like, you can work and have a negative result on your outcomes if you're working on the wrong things, if you're putting your energy towards things that don't necessarily serve you, and that can kind of be classified as just hustling and working, when in reality it's you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So again, find out things that you like, that you can master and you're passionate about learning, and then try to be the best you can at that thing or those things.
I love what you said about reps. I don't know if this was I don't think this was the Jay Shetty and Russ interview, but it was a Russ interview I just watched. And I don't know if it was him or the interviewer, but for the sake of it, doesn't really matter. Let's just say Russ said it. He basically said, like, every single beat that he's ever created is a rep. He's like, people go to the gym, you have reps. The first rep's not, like, perfect, this and that. But, like, he's like, I've never had a shit beat because every one was a rep towards me creating what then is, acceptable or something to put out or is good. And that really resonated with me, and hearing you say that just echoes that sentiment. And I've been really running into that lately with video, and I've actually been working on, I've had a few working sessions. I'm trying to make beats and like some music stuff, and just looking into more kind of hobby aspects of, my life. And I don't want to say I've been like discouraged, but it's such a weird feeling for me as someone who has created like a career in a field and then built a company still based in that field. So like from a foundational perspective, I have a level of comfort even in the entrepreneurship space, even though I'm a complete novice and on my first run with entrepreneurship, because foundationally it's accounting, I still feel some level of comfort and skill. But with putting out content, with making beats, like, it's shit, like I've showed Sam some of the beats. I'm horrible. And as someone who's like a diehard music fan, I'm just like, holy shit, like, I'm bad. Like, today I am bad. And like, in doing content, I even go back, I watch the videos that I'm doing, day to day, and I'm like, oh, I fucking killed it. But we're on episode 40 now.
40's in the schedule
of Inside an Accountant's Mind. And I go back and watch the first one, and I'm like, bro, that's dog shit. Like, oh my God, my tone, it's nuts. And I'm not even
a month and a half ago.
And that's only a month and a half ago. But it's like, but I don't allow myself to not do it every day, just pump out content, video after video after video. And I'm now like, not allowing myself to get discouraged by because I'm thinking in that headspace of every single video is a rep. Every single time I sit at the computer and put together the worst beat you've ever heard, that's literally another rep of getting me closer to creating something that I'm going to be proud of. And I had this come full circle today. I had a moment I was putting together for a client. I was putting together this spreadsheet for basically setting up their cost of goods sold. And I won't totally nerd out, but I don't really think of things as being difficult in the space of accounting. Point blank. I'm sure you're in the same thing with video. Not that I don't continue to learn and continue to try to get better, but I don't necessarily ever think of things as work or difficult. It's just part of the job. It is what it is. And I built this Excel basically database that connects 4 different data points that they have, all on different platforms and this and that they all speak together, if errors up the wazoo, like a dozen VLOOKUPs. And it took me like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to build out. And obviously they had hired me because every single person they hired, firm that they hired before couldn't get it done and this and that. And I presented this thing and they were like, holy shit, like, how in God, like it was the first time I've had somebody react like that. And I obviously, you don't get that reaction in accounting often because people don't give a shit, they just want to know it. But like, as I was going through it, they were like, oh my God, like, this is insane. And it was like that full circle moment of like, yeah, but it's also because I have 100,000 reps in Excel of now, like, I can't tell you how many times I fucked up the most simple VLOOKUP. I can't tell you, like, literally when I first started doing equals sum in Excel.
That about expands my expertise.
Which is why I took it even beneath the VLOOKUP, but like even to like equals, you know, A1 plus B1, you know, the cells and getting them to add to each other. And I was just like, this is why I'm able to do this, is because like I never thought about myself being bad at accounting ever. Like where I'm saying, like, I made a shit beat. I never in a zillion years ever told myself I was shit at accounting. Because I never looked at myself comparatively speaking or tried to produce anything. I just wanted to fucking get better. I just, in every phase of my accounting life, was just, I don't know it. Okay, cool, I've got to learn it. Oh, I don't know it. Okay, I've got to learn this next step. And now I got to be able to learn how to do this. And I never thought of it of like, I'm creating reps or I'm shit today, but I'm gonna be good tomorrow. I always thought I was fucking phenomenal. Even when I could only do equals A1 plus B1, I literally thought of myself the same way of putting this entire, you know, this entire conglomerate of, you know, equation or system and process. I felt the same level of ego at literally the most entry level of accounting. So now I'm trying to go and apply that back to all the other areas of my life, because that's how I'm actually going to ever see any of that stuff through, is by getting back in the headspace of like, no, that beat's fucking raw. Like, why do I think I should make a better beat? Like, why, like, but now because of my accounting background and I've built some level of, you know, success in that world, I'm assuming that same level of success. And I'm like, you're a dumb motherfucker. Like, you literally, why do you think you should make a good beat? You've made 3. You've tried to make 3. That's like trying to do that accounting equation on your 3rd day using Excel. Like, why do you think that that's any different? So that's where I've been trying to apply that headspace to the content, to the music, to basically everything that I'm going into, is strictly because I know that in a long-term window, if we're talking about this inside an accountant's mind, episode 400 or episode 4000, it's not going to be shit anymore. It's not going to be 5 to 10 views. At that point, I hope it's at 1,000 views or 5,000 views a video. But the only way to get to 4,000 is by not thinking and critiquing yourself every step along the way. It's just doing it because you want to do it, enjoying it, and then naturally just progressing and striving to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to hone in on that when you started.
I love that. I
Um,
love that.
So that was just a random thought that I kind of had as you guys were talking, but I'm sure we're coming up on the hour mark, and if anyone is still
I
watching,
think the biggest thing that will help you grow is, how much are you putting out on LinkedIn right now?
every day we have a long form and then we have clips. Sam would be able to answer that better than me.
Yeah, one with a long form video. We do that every day. Most of those are under 10 minutes, so we're able to post them on LinkedIn. And then short clips 3 times a week. So roughly 8 to 10 videos a week.
I would love to see you guys go and fucking hit TikTok hard.
We literally just I created a TikTok last week. Like I haven't had one. I actually created an account.
We'll talk about it afterwards, but yeah, that's where you guys are gonna fucking blow up. You're gonna make accounting cool on TikTok, show people. You give so many just accounting tips and how you set up your Giannis collection from an accountant's perspective, and there's so many opportunities there. So we'll learn out about that after.
Yeah, literally hearing you say that, my mind is now running. So like, I should probably close this so we can get to strategizing. But first time being on the podcast, I appreciate it. I'll close it by asking. Man, we really hit all the usual like key points. Fuck. Where would you want to close it? Just first thing that pops in your head, parting words.
Work less and party more.
Jesus Christ. We're definitely gonna talk about
No, I have some truths behind that, and obviously I say it lighthearted, but I just had a podcast centered around like the disadvantages of hustle porn and how it's so toxic to society. Of like, Gary's the poster child of it, even though his messaging gets skewed through the lenses of society. People think Gary's pushing just like hustle, when in reality he pushes happiness. But a lot of other people in this space and starting business, entrepreneurship. Elon is a huge proponent of it, and I love Elon. He's one of my favorite inventors of all time and entrepreneurs, and I definitely look up to him. And at the start of my journey, I was working just stupid hours of 70, 80, 90, 100-hour weeks every single week, and I quickly realized it's not sustainable. And if I can help anyone realize that faster of, hey, entrepreneurship isn't all about working 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. It's about doing what's sustainable to you and finding what works for you. So maybe I want to work 4 hours a week and build systems around my business to be able to fund that lifestyle. And maybe I want to build a company I can exit while working 4 hours a week. That gets me pretty excited, because then I have the freedom of my time, which is the most important asset to me and should be to anyone, to go out and start a new business if I want, or go out and snowboard if I want, or hang, or pick up skateboarding, or doing whatever I want to do with my time, because I'm not sitting in a 9 to 5, because I've made the decision to myself of, hey, I'm going to build this company, and this is why, and this kind of lifestyle I want to build, and that's for me. That's not for anyone else. That's not to make anyone else happy, because I want to build it this way. So I think more people need to find what works for them and not be scared to bash against where kind of society is going, which is this like hustle culture, hustle porn, work 100-hour weeks to be successful narrative, when in reality that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, your time does not necessarily equal money, and you shouldn't look at business like that. You should look at, okay, what systems can you build to provide the most value to people? And that will have such a bigger exponential advantage benefit than you trading your time directly for money. So that's the explanation behind work less and party more. In reality, like, find what works for you and have fun.
So this is how we wind up always talking for 6 hours at a time. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate to that, because there is a lot of truth to what you just said. There is actually, there's 100% truth to what you just said. But the counterculture of hustle hard is bullshit is the 4-hour work week, or the 5-hour work week, or this or that, which, as you've mentioned, put the systems in place, but you mentioned that but I'll say that you have that opportunity, and I shortly will have that opportunity to put in 5, 10, whatever hour weeks, or whatever we want to choose. But it's because I work 17 hours a day for 8 years. So one, I don't know if you have one without the other. I'm not saying you can't luck yourself into an opportunity or things like that, but I honestly don't think you can. I don't think the word luck is ever involved. I would say that while, yes, you don't need to be Elon Musk, but there's a reason that man is also worth $200 billion. But I don't know if you can have the level of success that you're talking about and freedom without having the work ethic to build that and get it into place. And I think that's where people that the hustle hard culture and then the 4-hour work week, I think both of them end up losing in the end, because one person never has the time to live, and one person never works hard enough to get the opportunities to allow for themselves to live. So I think there's a balance somewhere there in the middle. So the reason I wanted to play the devil's advocate is because I agree with you wholeheartedly. But in the same breath, I didn't want that to be the last thing if somebody watched this far and like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna start building systems. Well, you've developed a skill, you've built a business, and that was for you 70, 80 hours, 70, 80, 90 hours a week that like led to it. And for me with accounting, like, there is no exaggeration. Like, when I say I work 17 hours a day, like, Sam lived with me. Like, that's the God honest truth. And that wasn't just
Sam.
And that wasn't just Monday through Friday. Like, on the weekends, then I was studying accounting. I was working. I was putting in those Excel reps and I was gonna say training myself, but I'm not a dog. Teaching myself how to do everything. And I wouldn't be having this conversation, or wouldn't even be a possibility of, hey, maybe I want to do a 5-hour work week or this. There would be a 0% chance that I would have that freedom today with the level of quote on so-and-so success if I didn't work 16, 17, 18 years worth of work in 7 to 8 years.
So
Yeah, you can like fucking. I want to go out and live a 4-hour work week, 5-hour work week. How do I get there? You need to put in a few years.
Yeah, like, and that's all I'm saying.
So I love that response, because again, I'm all for like preaching 4-hour work weeks. Have I ever worked a 4-hour work week? I don't know. Like, again, going back to my point of like, I look at life so fluidly of I don't compartmentalize my life into this is business. Here's how many hours I'm spending on the business versus life. And that's kind of the underlying narrative I'm trying to push of like, hey, life is all about being fluid. So many people are pushing hustle porn that I like to push the other way to kind of just lower that a little bit. And again, I don't know the last time I've actually worked 4 hours a week. I don't think it's ever happened. I just like preaching it because it brings people's expectations down a little bit as far as, all right, I don't need to put in 80-hour weeks, but there's some middle ground. But yeah, I've put in my fair share of 100-hour weeks before to get me to a point where I am today, where if I want to work 4 or 5 hours a week, awesome, I can do that. And again, it ultimately comes down to like what works for you and what do you ultimately want in life. And that's what I try to push with a funny, lighthearted message. I know it always creates good conversations around it.
Absolutely. And I'll kind of close that thought out by saying what's really interesting to me about that whole conversation is that I think when people push the hustle hard, it's what audience is responding to that. So like, if you hear hustle hard and you have to work 80 hours a week and you're like, well, I don't want to do that because that'd be miserable, then you're probably doing something that you don't want to be doing. And then we have a different conversation, because like, as you're talking about 100-hour work week, and I'm not saying, for me, even that I was never stressed or I never was like fucking burnt out or this or that, but 100-hour work week doesn't feel like a 100-hour work week when you're pursuing a passion and trying to master something that you thoroughly enjoy and thoroughly want to get better at. That's where I think the largest disconnect in that is, and people say hustle hard or 4-hour work week. I don't think anyone's asking for a 4-hour work week when you love what you do. I wouldn't know how to work 4 hours, and you're saying I don't think you ever have, but you want the freedom to. And putting in that time and effort and that getting to that level of mastery is what allows for you to now have the freedom of choice, which Sam and I talk about a lot. The freedom of choice to, if I wanted to, I could work a 4-hour work week, but I'm not going to because I'm doing something that I love. And then that's how that begins to compound. So that's where I think a lot of the people butt heads on that is, and that's where Gary is. Everyone looks at that because you used him as an example of, well, that guy works all the time and he says but it's not work to that guy. And like, he's pushing like work and this and that, and like, but he's coming from a perspective of his work is what he loves to do. And that's where that's the long and short of it is, I think that's where I think the biggest disconnect stems from of 4-hour work week versus hustle hard is just the fact people that are probably wanting a 4-hour work week is because they're stressed in the first place. So the hustle hard mentality sounds like absolute hell.
Yep. I agree 100%.
Well, we can definitely keep talking, but this is why we got to close things and have somewhat of an endpoint. I'm sure we'll have you on in the future.
Oh, my internet's bugging out. Shit.
Yeah.
My internet's bugging.
But thank you so much for hopping on. I obviously appreciate it. I'm sure this will be the first of many that we shoot. And yeah, keep cooking, keep growing, keep thriving, and I look forward to continue to see where your journey goes.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.